Hello dear chess friends, my name is Mateusz Kolosowski. I'm an international master from Poland and this is my video on attacking the king in the center. In this video I will attempt to show you how you can successfully build up an attack against the king placed in the center of the board, which hasn't castled yet. And I will try to provide you with some guidance, some insight on how you can use very simple principles in order to make sure that your attack is going to be a successful one. For the purpose of recording this video, I've decided to choose a very classical game played between Boris Spaskky, the former world champion, and a less known player called named after Nomov, a Russian player, a Russian master, and most likely he was well known for losing a game to Spassky, but nevertheless I'm a huge fan of this game because it shows the simplicity and how you can very quickly and easily construct a successful attack when you know several principles, which I'm going to show you in this video. So let's just jump right into the game. There was d4, d5, c4, d takes c4, knight f3, knight f6. So we see that this is a queen's gambit accepted. e3, e6, bishop takes c4, c5, castles, a6. Here Boris Spaskky, playing with white, decided to play queen e2, which is a very natural move, although nowadays you would probably see people playing bishop b3. This is a move which is considered to be a little bit more precise, simply because of the fact that b5 will not come with a tempo. This is a very subtle difference. And of course, queen e2 has to be regarded as a very good move as well, because it just develops another piece, makes room for the rook on d1, and as a result, white is simply able to consolidate very quickly and effectively. Black went b5. This is once again a very natural choice. Black played a6 in order to play b5, to be able to develop the bishop to b7, to put the bishop on the line along diagonal, so everything is very natural for the moment. Bishop b3, knight c6, knight c3, and this is the first position I would like you to pay special attention to, because at this point, since black is on move, the question arises if actually Spassky blundered the pawn on d4. As you know, central pawns are of course of very big value because they are placed in the most relevant part of the board, of course, in terms of opening and the middle game. When you have a pawn in the center, it's way easier to control that area of the board. You can use such a pawn to create outposts. You can control certain important squares. And of course, when you control the center, it's much easier for you to transfer your pieces from one side to another. So basically what you want to avoid is losing central pawns. So now feel free to take some time and calculate whether Spassky actually blundered this d4 pawn, because if he did, then perhaps Black is just able to seize the initiative and win some material advantage. Take some time and feel free to calculate that. Okay, so those of you who already have the answer, for sure would like me to continue, and those of you who still need to take some time, feel free to pause the video as now I will reveal the answer. So even though it is possible to take on d4, this still doesn't mean that white has to take on d4 automatically. Instead, white can play rook d1. And since rook d1 attacks the d4 pawn again, this pawn is pinned, it cannot take the knight on c3. That is a very important detail. And assuming that black doesn't want to lose his d4 pawn, because of course white increased the pressure on that pawn, and he is actually threatening to take on d4 with the pawn, most probably. So assuming that black doesn't want to lose his pawn, he might try playing something like bishop c5. The problem with bishop c5 is that white can simply take on d4. And after knight takes d4, we have some simplifications. Knight takes d4, bishop takes d4. And perhaps the pawn on d4, black's pawn on d4, was not a big of a problem, even though it was pinned. But a pinned bishop on d4 will cause black huge problems. So now all white needs to do is to attack that bishop again by means of bishop e3. And unfortunately for black, he's just going to lose material, because e5 is not going to bring him any relief, as bishop takes d4 just wins material due to the fact that e5 pawn is now pinned. Queen takes d4 is of course out of the table, and black is just going to lose the game. So this didn't really seem very appealing to Avtonomov, and instead he went on to playing bishop b7. That looks like a very natural choice, a very logical continuation, because of course black develops the bishop, and now it seems like he's going to be able to have better control over some central squares. Although in a moment you will see that this is not entirely true. So Spassky just took on d4, and now as you see, d5 might be a threat. So there is a queen on e2, king on e8, the pawn on e6 is pinned, so playing a move like d5 should create some problems for black, because of course this comes with a tempo. e6 pawn is under attack, and then white is just going to be able to play d takes e6, getting access to the black king. In order to prevent that, black played knight b4, and now we reach the most important part of the game and of the entire example. So I would like us to stop for a moment and talk a little bit about the theory of attacking the king in the center. I didn't reveal the entire theory at the very beginning of the game, because I thought that it's going to be better if you see me explaining some principles on an actual example in a real over-the-board game. So basically, what you need to remember about attacking the king in the center, that there are several principles which you and when you obey them, then you have a great chance of creating a successful attack on the king placed in the center. First of all, you need to make sure that the king is not going to escape from the center. That seems like something very obvious, and yet people tend to forget about it. So first, make sure that you are able to stop the king in the center, either by depriving him from the right to castle, or perhaps luring somewhere to the center by sacrificing a piece, for instance on f7, on e6. There are several options, and you will find detailed options in many games. Second of all, make sure you open files and diagonals, as many files and diagonals. After all, it's much easier to access the opponent's king when you have open files for the rooks and for the bishops. Such pieces can attack the king from the distance, so you don't really have to get very close to the opponent's king, and yet you can be very successful, create threats, and seize the initiative. The third principle you need to remember about is to invite all of your friends to the party. In other words, you don't want to attack with just a bishop and a queen. What you want to do is to bring both of your knights, pair of the rooks, basically your entire army. As you probably remember from the very beginning of your chess career, you probably tried to give checkmate to your opponent by putting the bishop on c4 and the queen on f3, attempting queen f7 checkmate. And then after some time you realize that this is not really effective, because it's very easy to defend against such a child's play. So instead, make sure you engage your entire army, your entire all of your pieces, and invite all of your friends to the party. Make the numbers decide the game. And last but not least, make sure to create threats, because when your opponent is occupied with having to deal with those small things, small ideas, when his pieces are under pressure, under attack, then he doesn't have time to consolidate, and it's basically difficult to deal with all of the problems at the same time. So most likely, simply because of the fact that in practice it's much more difficult to defend than to attack, he will just make a mistake. Let's just remember that chess is a game of mistakes. It's just one human being playing against another human being, and mistakes are going to be made. So in this position, what you need to do, what I would like you to do, is to apply one of the first principles I mentioned. Again, keep the king in the center, open files and diagonals, invite all of your friends to the party, and create threats. So what should white do in this position? Take some time. In a moment I will reveal the answer. So for those of you who already have it, I will give the answer in a moment. Those of you who still need to take some time, feel free to do that. Feel free to pause the video. It's up to you. Make sure that you take the most out of this video and make your training as efficient as possible. So what Spassky did is really remarkable, and it's an idea worth remembering. Black basically wants to play knight b to d5, creating a blockade against this central d4 pawn, and if he manages to do that, then his position is just going to be very good. He will neutralize white's forces very efficiently, and I don't believe black has anything to fear at this point. And once Spassky realized that, he knew that he needs to play very actively, very aggressively, and he was considered to be the master of initiative for a reason. And in this position he found a truly strong move, which is d5. Definitely deserving an exclamation point. Black is under serious pressure, and as you see, d takes e6 is a threat. Black needs to take it, so knight takes d5 was played. And now we go to the second principle, or the third one. The first was to keep the king in the center, but for the moment black is not threatening to castle, so we'll have to mix it a little bit for the purpose of this example. So now we go to the third principle. Invite all of your friends to the party. How should you do that? Again, please take some time, make sure that you find the right answer, don't be too hasty. Imagine it's a game, you have only one chance to make the right move. Okay, if you have the answer, then it's great. If you still need to take some time, then feel free to pause the video, as now I will tell you what the right move is. And the right move is bishop g5. Now let's look at the position. What happened? active, 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 very active and very annoying. Okay, the rook on a1 is probably not the happiest piece in the team, but considering the fact that black still has two rooks in the corners, the bishop on f8, and most of his pieces pinned, I think that we can already say that the opening was a great success for Spassky, and the only problem for him is that currently he's down a pawn. But in my opinion, that's a very fair price for obtaining such a position. So in order to neutralize white's pressure, because obviously those two knights which are currently pinned are big source of worries for black. So in order to neutralize that pressure, Avtonomov went bishop e7. And at this point, black is already threatening to castle. So now we need to go to the first principle. Make sure that the opponent doesn't castle and that his king doesn't escape from the center. This can be achieved in a relatively easy way in this position. For sure, we need to be very fast and don't really allow black time to make this one move. Remember, he's just one move from castling. So we need to find a very forcing continuation and not allow him to escape. In order to do that, Spassky simply started exchanging pieces. Bishop f6. And at this point, it's already quite visible that those pins on central files are very important, because if black takes back with the bishop, and simply knight d5, bishop d5, bishop takes d5, white is up a piece, and black is not going to avoid further material loss. So this wasn't possible, and instead black had to play g takes f6, which is generally not a move you want to make. So already black's pawn structure is demolished, but okay, we can still assume that black would be relatively happy with escaping from the center with his king by castling. But Spassky anticipated that, and he started exchanging even more. Knight d5, bishop d5, bishop d5, e takes d5. And let's look at this position again. Black is up a pawn, but his pawn structure is very bad. We see that there are doubled pawns on f-file. We see this isolated pawn on d5, which is under serious pressure by the white rook. And the only question is whether castling is still a threat. I think it is, because apart from the fact that castling provides the king with shelter and it makes the king safer in general, what is also very important and what I would like you to remember is that whenever you castle, you connect the rooks, which definitely helps you in consolidating your position overall. And in order to prevent black from castle, Spassky made a very strong move, and he used tactical solution or a threat. He played knight d4, so now it's an application of the last principle. Make threats. What is the threat? The threat is that after black castles, white simply plays knight c6, forking the queen and the bishop and winning the material. Alternatively, knight f5 can be played because now queen g4 is a threat, and also knight takes e7. Taking the bishop would also be enough. So after knight d4, black went king f8, just to sidestep that pin. This was met with knight f5, h5, and now we reach the final difficulty. We just need to wrap up the game, we need to conclude it, and feel free to take some time to solve this final exercise, as now I will show you how Spassky concluded this game. He simply played rook takes d5. White is just ready to finish the game with this nice tactical resource. Queen takes d5, queen e7 check, king g8, queen f6. and the threat of queen g7 checkmate and knight e7 simply decides the game. So from this video we should remember the principles of attacking the king in the center, and I will repeat them now, so you don't have to go back to the middle of the video. First of all, make sure that your opponent's king doesn't escape from the center. Second of all, open as many files and diagonals as possible. The third principle is invite all of your friends to the party. So in other words, bring as many pieces to the attack as possible. And the last one, make threats. Remember that whenever you have initiative, whenever you apply pressure on your opponent, it's much more difficult for him to defend, because when he has to face real danger, real problems to solve, at one point he just might go wrong. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and this was Mateusz Kolosowski for Remote Chess Academy.